Let's do this.
It's time for Hanging with Langan.
I like that she's got a big dirty mouth that gets her in trouble.
Wow.
Stop me, 'cause I'm having a good time.
Hey, you guys, welcome to Hanging with Langan. I'm Maureen Langan, and that's why you're hanging with Langan. You know what I do here? I bring you great guests from academics to alcoholics and everyone in between. That's what we do. We give you a show that's fun, heart, smart. It runs the gamut. Sometimes I bring on my comedy friends. Sometimes I bring on highbrow people talking about lost Jewish art. It all happens here. So today I'm very excited because I have a gentleman joining me. His name is John McDonagh. Those of you in New York City likely know him from hosting his Sunday talk show with Malachi McCourt on WBAI. This man is a character. He is a taxi driver. He has been driving a taxi. He has his hack license for, since 1977. And the stories he has to tell, unbelievable. You have no idea how much, I would say, fame he has for driving a taxi. There are people who come over from the UK to highlight him. He's been on The Daily Show. He's been on Fox News. They weren't a fan of his because he's a bit of a rebel rouser. But we're going to talk all about that. Before I bring John McDonagh, I want to let you know he's also doing a one-man show on Saturday, October 9th, over at the New York Irish Center. It's in Long Island City on Jackson Avenue. And it's called Off the Meter, and it's all about these crazy experiences and stories he has. So you have to go see that. It's a must. I'm telling you, it's at 3:00. How hard is that to do? Then you go out to dinner after. So let me start with a clip. And good evening, Charlotte. Good evening, Jim. You guys, if you're watching this, please share it, okay? Charlotte, hit the share button. Jim, hit the share button. As we grow the numbers, people know the show is here. It makes me so happy. I'm going to play a clip from The Daily Show. I think I'm going to start with this one. John McDonagh, he talks about how New Yorkers, we have a greeting. And if we say, F you, it's love. It's really love.
That's what's great about taxis. There's no rating system.
We always verbally rated each other. I can go to you, go f yourself. And I feel good, and you feel good, and we're all on our way.
Well, I thought it was New Yorkers' way of saying, have a nice day.
That's because they didn't like you as a passenger. And
I am perfectly pleasant. I am a perfectly pleasant passenger. I'm easy to be around. I'm polite. I'm white. What more do you want from me?
Listen, in a yellow cab, you can break balls and not get rated. What's better than that?
What is better than that? I can't imagine a cabless world without guys like John in the front seat. I mean, after all, he's more than a cabbie. He's my friend. Thanks, John.
Hey. Go yourself.
All right, John McDonagh with me now.
Of all the clips that you picked, come on, man. Good God.
Dude, you were on The Daily Show.
Cursing on The Daily Show. Oh, my God.
You were on The Daily Show.
Listen, I took it as a great honor because people would kill to get on that show. And I got an email asking me, can you come on the show? And what it was on about was to talk about what was happening to the yellow cab industry vis-a-vis Uber, Lyft, Via, Get, and how it was destroying the industry. Well, destroying the yellow cab industry. So they had me on for 8 hours. They went around driving, and they took 3 minutes out of that. But I'm very proud of the whole segment. Anyway.
Well, that's how it works, my darling. That's how it works in television. They go out all day. But listen, that was my dream job, would have been writing for The Daily Show or writing for Saturday Night Live. I love the tongue in cheek. I love the sarcasm. I love all of it. The lambasting, the satirical or skewing. So you have had a hack license, a taxi license, you said since 1977.
Right.
What is having a medallion allowing you to be a taxi driver? That was worth a fortune. What is that worth now? What would it have cost back in the day, and what is it worth now?
Well, it started going up through the 80s and in the 90s, and then Bloomberg really blew it up when he was mayor. He started selling extra medallions, and when they were putting them on the market, they went all the way up to 1,100,000. So a lot of people who had bought medallions say, at say 200,000 or 300,000. We're now refinancing because the value of the medallion, say, was 1.1 million, and medallion owners then were refinancing and sending their kids to school, buying houses and everything. But the physics of driving a cab did not change at all. When you drive a cab in 1 hour, you can only get 5 or 6 passengers in your cab, and that's all the money you can make. So even as the price was going up, and it was getting crazy, the price of it going up, you couldn't make any more money physically. It just can't be done because you can only physically get 5 people within an hour into your cab between traffic and everything else. So then Uber, Lyft, they all came into town. The yellow cab industry was not technically viable. They didn't have an app, and it just collapsed. And just recently, within the last couple of weeks, a medallion went for $50,000.
And what do you think? Is it overpriced at that price these days? Or
well,
I mean,
you know what? That might not be too bad because you would be able to pay it off. And you would hope that maybe the yellow cab industry can catch up technology-wise with a good app, and that people would do it. Because I went to the meetings at City Hall when the apps were coming in, and there was actual owners of garages were testifying. They said they're not worried about the app because New York is a street hail town. They said San Francisco might use that app and have it come up to their door and they go into the cab. But they said New York is not like that. And I was here. Well, why not? Why wouldn't I want a cab to come up to my door or to the bar?
I was just about to say that.
Stand on the street like this and hope for a cab. Because you know what we've become now? A novelty act. A kid will say, Daddy, jump up and down. I want to see the yellow cab stop. Because it's unusual now. People don't see it because people are on the phone. They're hitting the app and the driver just pulls up. No words are said. You just jump in. So people are fascinated now that you can go up and cabby and a cab stops.
Yeah, but John, I mean, I think about people, particularly a lot of foreign people who come to America and they invest every penny into a medallion and they are in debt. That's like the housing market when it blew up, the bubble, and it burst. I mean, how can you get out of that kind of chunk of debt?
But they can't. In the recent years, 12 cab drivers have committed suicide.
Oh,
and
no.
yeah, and I went to a lot of the funerals and the wakes and memorials. And the thing about it is, it doesn't end there with the guy committing suicide. Now the wife or the kid gets a medallion, but they still owe what's owed to the banks. That doesn't change with the suicide. So now they're in debt, and the banks are confiscating that. And now they're going after the houses, because if you refinance and use that money to buy a house, the bank is trying to get that house because you used the money from the medallion to buy the house.
Whoa. So how many, like back when it was happening and it was popular, everybody, was there only a certain number of medallions available and they capped it every year, or did they open it up?
No, it was capped for 50 years. See, this is another part of the problem. The population of New York was expanding, but the yellow cab industry stayed the same. And the people that owned the medallions wanted it that way because it meant more business. So what happened, Bloomberg came in and he started selling medallions, and he got us up to about 13 to 14,000 medallions. But it almost coincided with Uber and Lyft coming into town. There was a synergy of that happening. And when they came into town, they brought another over 100,000 cabs essentially into Manhattan. And then thankfully, de Blasio cut it. He stopped it. He says, we cannot keep adding more and more cabs. So right now, for the past 2 or 3 years, it's been capped at, say, 120,000 Uber and Lyft within the city of New York.
So how many cabs are on the street these days?
Well, with yellow cabs, there's 13,000, but they're not on the thing on the street. Since the pandemic, there's a term, they've shelved the medallion because you cannot make enough when you're paying insurance, the maintenance of the car, oil change, accidents and everything like that. So they have put it away, and there's only about right now 6,000 yellow cabs out on the street. And they're sort of making money, but it's a real hustle. You're doing 12-hour shifts. When you drive out of a garage, there's 2 shifts, a day shift and a night shift. They're both 12 hours. And you have to pay a lease fee of about $110, say, for a day shift, plus $30 in gas. So it's $140 you have to make before you make a penny for yourself.
Wow, I feel for people. And obviously you're not in debt with yours. What did you pay for yours back in the day?
No. I've always worked out of a garage. See, garages are more for drivers who are losers. Like you go in and work whenever you want. You didn't have the ambition to go out and buy a medallion. You didn't have that stamina to say, I am going to give up my life now and work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day and own that. So the garages has always been for slackers. Because
you can slacker, John?
Oh yeah. Because you came and went as you want. You weren't committed to anything. You could call up the garage, say, listen, is it busy today? Do you need drivers? Yeah, come on in. We'll give you a car. So you go in, there's no responsibilities. You don't have to maintain the car. You don't have to do oil changes in the car. You don't have to do anything. You just drive the 12 hours, you bring it back, and you go home.
What could you make in a day, John McDonagh, activist?
Back in, say, about 10 years ago, you can make 150 to 200 on a day shift and between 200 and 250 on a night shift.
All right. Now, listen, we're going to play a little clip about the night shift. And this is a little stereotypical. We're going to talk about you going into the South Bronx. This was a television show from the UK came to the United States and followed you around. Isn't that true? Set it up for us, and then I'll play.
This might be with Stephen Fry.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he's a very famous British actor. Over in the United Kingdom, he's famous. So he did a documentary called Stephen Fry Comes to America, and he wanted to see my New York. So I drove around with him for a day and described where I grew up in Queens and what the taxi life was like. Because he drives a black cab in London, but the only reason he does it is he can go into the bus lanes because it's a black taxi to get in and out of the city. He doesn't pick up anyone. So he went across the country in a black cab to meet people in every state. So I was the guy that represented New York City.
I love it. I saw it was like a mini documentary of the slice of life kind of New York thing. And it was great watching that. And they featured you and some of the, the Goombas in Queens. And it was a hoot.
Otherwise known as guys I grew up with.
Yeah, right. Now I'm going to play this. Then I want people who are just tuning in now. John McDonagh, he's a radio host in New York City, WBAI. He's a taxi driver, and he's doing his one-person show called Off the Meter, Saturday, October 9th at the New York Irish Center, being run by my friend George Heslin. That's in Long Island City, 3:00. NewYorkIrishCenter.org. And of course, I'll have all this information up on my .com stuff. But I'm going to play this. And again, a few little stereotypes here, but my dad is from the South Bronx. So regardless of what culture people have been in the South Bronx, it's been what we call a bit hairy. So here you go.
After an 11-hour shift, you're at a light, it's 3 a.m, and you hear both doors open and guys jump in. And they go, yo, my man, we're heading up to the South Bronx. And like the hair in the back of the head. Oh, not at this hour. You run them up, and then at first you're saying, oh, God, please don't rob me. Then as you get closer, you say, all right, you don't even have to tip me, just pay me. Then as you see the neighborhood, you say, listen, just jump, please. just go. I'll take the loss. I don't really care. And someone was asking me about, what are the benefits? What's your retirement plan like? I said, my retirement plan is 4:30 in the morning, a 9mm to the back of the head in the South Bronx. And I said, that's when I've retired.
Jesus, Marion.
Well, listen, that was not that far off. Cab drivers during the 80s, almost one a month was being killed and robbed, because we had money on us. That doesn't happen today because everything's done with credit cards. And I'll tell you how the South Bronx has changed. Real estate agents now are changing names in neighborhoods, right? Yeah. So now you have Dumbo, Nolita, Lolita, and all these other. I had a guy get in a cab.
All these hookers, a lot of hookers.
Well, that wasn't a neighborhood. That used to be the West Village.
Lolita.
The meatpacking district. So I had a guy get in the cab and he goes, yeah, listen, my man, I'm heading up to Sobro. I said, Sobro, where's that? He goes, the South Bronx. That's what it's called now by real estate agents, Sobro. And the rents in the South Bronx now are the highest raising rents in the city. And the city of New York is trying to fine real estate agents if they're caught renaming neighborhoods in order to jack up the rents.
So what are they going to do to the people changing the names?
They're going to fine them because they're changing the names to make the neighborhood sound fancy, so they can get bigger rents for the apartments that they're taking and showing the people.
There are some really cool spaces in the South Bronx, but it also has the highest density of public housing in all the boroughs, according to Martha Lincoln's research. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that is just part of the makeup. My father grew up on 139th and Alexander Avenue, so it's as South Bronx as you can get. But St. Jerome's Church is up there; it's beautiful. The police station, they used to call it Doctors Row, Millionaire Street. There was a block of townhouses. He was on a 5th floor walk up, mind you, with a million kids. So, John, I'm going to do a quick little commercial break, as I call them. And then I want to get to your one-person show, Off the Meter, some of your stories about life as a taxi driver. So stand by, 1Adam12, and then we have some questions for you as well. All right, so you guys, here's the deal. I want you to go to MaureenLangan.com. Check out what gigs I have coming up. I'm going to be adding a bunch more. I'll be at the Punchline in San Francisco next week. I'm doing a big private event, hosting a wonderful organization called Ability Path that raises money for special needs children, special needs adults. It's an organization that I just love. And so we're doing a lot of that, moderating a New York Times best-selling authors panel. So I tell you all this because the holidays are coming, or you may have a corporate event. So if you need a host, a moderator, or a comedy show, I can put that together for you. Go to MaureenLangan.com. You can connect with me right there. Or if you're on Facebook, you can private message me, and we'll work something fun out. The other thing is to, as you know, this is listener-supported public television, but on the .com. So if you're so inclined and want to surprise me if you want to support the show. You can donate at PayPal or Venmo. This just keeps the show going. I do a lot of work. I hire tech people, the equipment, I'm telling you. So it's PayPal and Venmo at Mo Langan. Better yet, go to Patreon.com, Maureen Langan, and you can subscribe beginning at $5 a month at different levels. And if you go up to $25, I'll give you a Don't Make Me Hate You t-shirt, which you see over my shoulder, because I don't want to hate people. They make me hate them. I'm a victim. And I found out that my comedy special, Don't Make Me Hate You, is coming out in January. It's on Dry Bar. So that's exciting. But listen, you can you can go all the way up to the Joan Rivers level. We'll do a comedy show for you, broadcast coaching, whatever you'd like, or start at $5. Carol Burnett, get access. What do you get? That's right. You get all the videos, all of them. And then starting at 10 and 25, you'll get the t-shirt. At 25, you'll get bonus videos and little tidbits and my little toilet talks when I escape my parents watching Fox News, and I hide in the bathroom and I talk to you so that I don't lose my mind. So those are some of the ways that you can support if you are so inclined. But please, what I would ask is subscribe for free on Apple, Spotify, iHeart. I would love for you to give a review on Apple Podcasts. Just download Hanging with Langan. But if you have nothing good to say, friggin' don't go near me. All right, so here we go. Let us bring back the star of the solo show, Off the Meter, life tales, social commentary from life behind the wheel of a taxi. Hi, you, John McDonagh.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. I'm not behind the wheel. Even the term now, off the meter, is becoming irrelevant. Nobody has meters anymore. The yellow cab's the only one that has it. Now everything's GPS. They can tell the distance and the time, and that's how you get the price. So even that term is going to go away, because there'll be no more meters very shortly.
Really? So they're just going to go by GPS. And
yep.
So I want to talk about Off the Meter. Let's talk about your show. Give us a taste of some of the stories you tell. Go.
Well, I start off by telling about when I first started. I drove a checker cab, and at that time the checker cab had no radio, no power windows, no power locks, no air conditioning, and you would finish your shift. You'll be covered in pollution. You could wipe it off your face and wipe it off your hands, and you would be drenched in sweat. But the only thing is, you were able to talk to the passengers because there was no iPhones and there was no television in the back. So you had to communicate with the passengers. So there was always conversation going on, because that's all gone now. When a person gets in now, they just say 65th and Madison, and that's the last word you'll get. They'll do the machine, and they never talk to you because they're on their phone the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I tell one particular story. A guy would jump in the back, and this is the fear you had. You're at a light, you don't see the guy, He jumps in and it gives you an address you didn't want to go. And at that time, it was the Lower East Side, or we called it the Alphabet Jungle, Avenues A, B, C, and D. Now, if he said he was going to 5th Street and Avenue B, he wasn't going to an art gallery. He was going to a shooting gallery. So you would go down Avenue B, and it looked like Dresden with bombed out buildings. And he would say to you, he said, listen, pull over at that building. Can you wait 5 minutes? I'm going to run into the building and come right out. And you were going to wait because you didn't want to pick up anybody in the Lower East Side. And he would have been a fare out of there. So 3 things would happen. He would go up, and next thing you know, he comes flying out of the building with a gun in one hand and a bag of dope in the other. He jumps in, and he's going, go, go, go. So now I'm a wheelman in a drug robbery. The only good thing about it is guys who rob drug dealers tend to tip better. Or
oh, good. There's an upside. I like that.
There is. That is the upside. And then another thing a guy would go into the building and he'd come flying out and he's covered in blood. He got beat by the dealer. The dealer robbed him. So he gets into the cab, and generally from the Upper East Side, you take him up there, you pull up to the building, the doorman comes out and he tells the doorman, pay the fare. So it's quite obvious this happened before. So, you tell stories about how, before there was an app to cop coke, you had to physically go and get it yourself down on the Lower East Side.
What do you mean an app for cop coke? What?
Oh, you can imagine everything's on the phone now. Buy coke.
Buy coke. If they said cop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So somebody will deliver it to you now to your house. You don't have to go to the Lower East Side anymore. You'll have it delivered to your house. Coke. I mean, everything.
I just wanted them to deliver a bottle of wine last night. They're like, no, it's after 9. I'm like, really? I just want some red wine. I want to, in that vein, talk about a few other things, but Charlotte's asking me, the organization that helps special needs people, they begin with babies, or they integrate pre-K with special needs children, with children who don't need extra help like that, and they help adults find independent living. It's called Ability Path, and it's in Mountain View, California. A fantastic organization. All right, so she was asking, and I like sharing the word organization. So, my dad was a New York City sanitation worker that was his job. And, big guy, and UE from the South Bronx. And, he said he'd go over to pick up some, the cans, the baskets on the corner. And some guy be like, yo, hey, don't touch my basket, And he's like, huh? And that meant something's going down. Somebody's dropping off and somebody's picking up out of that can. And he's like, yeah, that's your basket, man. That's your basket. You don't ask it. That's your basket.
Oh, that was it. But listen, growing up where I grew up in Middle Village, Queens, I said the career path for a son of Irish immigrants was you graduate high school, you do your time in the service, and when you come out, you take the test for the fire department, the sanitation, or the cops. And that was your path. That was your career path, because you got a pension, you got a good union job, and everyone did that. But timing was everything. At that time, I graduated in 73, did my time in the service. So 75, I get out. I get back from Germany, and the headline is Ford, the city dropped dead. And the city was laying off cops, firemen, and sanitation. So that's when I went and got my hack license, because I couldn't get on the job because they were laying off cops and firemen. And then life takes over, and I end up driving in 2 Centuries now. So,
my dad, he first got called up by the cops, but he didn't have 20/20 in one eye, so they didn't take him. You're talking about a guy 6'1", 205, 10 pounds at the time, wouldn't take him. Then the sanitation called up. That's a tough job, man. That is my respect for the sanitation workers. That's a friggin' tough job. Okay, I want to play a clip from The Daily Show that followed John McDonagh around, and they used him. That's a big friggin' deal. This guy, they come out of the woodwork internationally to follow this man and learn through his eyes the scene of New York City, which you can find out yourself by going to his solo show next week, Saturday. It's actually this week, Saturday, October 9th at 3 p.m. at the New York Irish Center. Let me put up the number for that. There you go. Off the meter, NewYorkIrishCenter.org for more information. Or if you'd like tickets, the number 718-482-0909. What's that number? Once again, 718-482-0909, NewYorkIrishCenter.org. Hop, skip, and a jump right in Long Island City. Okay, we're going to play this clip of John. Oh, hi, shout out. Okay, people watch this on different formats, different pages on Facebook. So if you are watching on the Hangin' with Langan page, what I want you to do is I can see your comments, we can see your comments, and we'll show you some of those in a moment, John. But what you need to do, my cherubs, is please give Facebook permission for me to see your name. And you just go StreamYard.com/Facebook, and then you click on the button, blue button. StreamYard.com/Facebook, click on the blue button. I'll be able to see the name associated with your lovely comment, but I know if it says Hi Scoop, that is, she says her father, Lenny, would have loved John, and that I know is my friend Carol, the banghead. I just know by her writing. Well, that I bet he would have loved John. Well, he's going to love John more, rest his soul, Lenny. But here we go. The Daily Show follows you downtown. Here we go.
Owning a medallion was like having a seat on the stock exchange. It was something that you would pass on to your children.
At this rate, taxis could become extinct. So John was turning to a higher power.
I got a priest in the Lower East Side, and at least once a day I go by and he gives me a blessing and he's praying that the price of the medallion is going to go up.
Hey, Father Pat, let's go.
There's a medallion, if you can bless it.
Me. You can bless me. You can bless me.
Son, Holy Spirit.
Ooh.
Amen.
Ooh.
God be with you.
Ooh, it burns. Things have to be pretty bad when you resort to having a priest pray for your taxi.
Very funny bit. And that priest that they show on the Daily Show, you guys, who's blessing your car with the holy water.
Yeah.
I got in trouble because in 5th grade, during confirmation, I put the prayer book over my head and yelled, "Hit the deck." My mother not so happy. But that's a real priest. He's not a character.
Yeah. No, Father Pat Maloney is known as a saint of the Lower East Side. He's been down there for over 50 years. He runs like a halfway house for troubled youth down on the Lower East Side. But he's also an Irish Republican. I've known him for over 40 years. And Father Pat got jammed up in a Brinks armored car robbery in Rochester, New York.
Let's back this up for people who don't know what an Irish Republican is. Set the table for that.
Yeah, well, his whole family is steeped in Irish republicanism, which is fighting for the freedom of Ireland of British rule. His father was in the IRA in 1916, and Father Pat would have been raised as an Irish Republican looking to get the British out of Ireland.
Right.
And he was arrested one time in Ireland, but nothing came of that. But he really got jammed up in a situation here. There was an armored car robbery up in Rochester, New York, that was done by an IRA guy and an Irish American cop. But somehow the money ended up down in the Lower East Side, and the FBI arrested Father Pat. Father Pat really didn't have nothing to do with it, but he got 4 years in the federal penitentiary. So he did 4 years in that, and he got out, and he's back in the Lower East Side. And, he got jammed up in a very bad situation. If you want to know more about it, just type in Father Pat Maloney, Saint of the Lower East Side. And next year, HBO, Netflix, and a major motion picture are doing a film about the Brinks armored car robbery. At the time, it was one of the biggest in the history of the United States. It was $7 million was taken, and there's still $5 million missing.
Does Father Pat have that?
Well, now a lot of people ask him that question. Where's the other $5 million? Because they caught $2 million with him. So,
and what do they call him? The Saint?
The Saint of the Lower East Side, Father Pat Maloney. You type that in. The New York Times has done a ton of stories on him, and there's been documentaries and everything.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph John McDonagh. So he wasn't in. Was he in the Bronx? Was he part of the Brinks holdup? Was he there?
No. The guys that were part of it came back to New York. They were from the city, and they brought duffel bags of money back. And Father Pat had a notion that it might have been for the IRA, and he didn't know it was a bank job. And that didn't go down well in when the court case happened up in Rochester.
So he took the money, knowing that not that it was a robbery, but knowing
Right.
some money had gotten together to get its way over to Ireland.
His defense was a lot of the Irish come to him because they're illegal. They couldn't open bank accounts. So they would give Father Pat to hold on to some of the money, and then he would give it out to. Now this was probably one of the biggest cash loads that he ever got on that, and it was found in an apartment in the Lower East Side. But as I said, there's going to be plenty of documentaries coming out about that. But yes.
He wasn't holding money for them. This was a bigger job going on than people not having bank accounts. I mean, this is
well.
What do you think it's going to be used for? Come on, John McDonagh of Off the Meter solo show.
Listen, I go by what the Holy Father has told me. He comes down and blesses the cab. I do not question the saint of the Lower East Side. I just take what he says as gospel.
Oh, okay. All right, you. Oh, that's good. That's a great. Are you going to talk about that in your one-person show?
Oh, yeah. There was another little segment there that went on afterwards, and they brought up statistics about African Americans not being picked up by yellow cabs, and we were our own worst enemy, that we didn't pick up, say, people of color. And I'm going to tell in the show, it was so bad in New York, and I witnessed it, and I took phone calls on BAI, that an African American male would have to stand on the corner and hold up a $20 bill in order to get a yellow cab to stop, to show that he had money for wherever he was going. That's how bad it was. And I say, and you wonder why Uber's winning, where there's no racism or anything in the app. You just hit the app and the cab shows up, as opposed to standing on the corner and having cabs just driving by you. And it was very degrading situation, particularly.
What would people try? I mean, obviously it's racism, but what was the thinking that if they picked up a black person?
Well, there's a couple of things. Nobody wanted to go into Brooklyn or Queens. A lot of times working class African Americans be working in, say, Manhattan, and they would want to, say, go back to Brooklyn or Queens, or say the Bronx. And out of all the boroughs, the Bronx was the worst, because you did have a shot in Brooklyn or Queens of getting a fare back to Manhattan. But in the Bronx, there was no hope. If you dropped off on the Grand Concourse or down in the South Bronx, there was nobody flagging you down there saying, oh, I'm heading down to the Village. But if you were in Brooklyn, say Brooklyn Heights or Flatbush Avenue, you could get a fare back, or Queens Boulevard and Forest Hills. You could get a fare back into the city, because that's where you always wanted to stay. You never wanted to leave Manhattan, because Manhattan is where the money was.
Right. You could do,
and when you were taken out, that means you have to come back empty into the city. So that was part of it. And it was outright racism too. I mean, they just didn't want to pick up black people.
And you assumed if you're picking up a black person, they're living outside of Manhattan. That was the assumption.
Yeah. Or you didn't want to go uptown to Harlem at that time. I mean, Harlem is completely changed right now, but you didn't want to go up to Harlem or Washington Heights, even though that's part of Manhattan. You really wanted to stay below 96 or 110th Street down to Wall Street. I mean, that's where you wanted to stay.
My dad, when he was picking up trash, he said there were certain areas they called the Ponderosa because it was the Wild West. You didn't know when the shootouts were going to happen. We were up at Ponderosa. I mean, he's so funny, though, the way he's much like yourself. I know you host a show on WBAI with Malachi McCourt on Sundays. Tell us what time and what is the number on there?
Well, it's if you're in the city and you happen to have a radio, which most people don't, it's at 99.5 FM. But on the internet, it's WBAI.org, and it's every Sunday, 11 to 12:30. I might be part of the show, but essentially I just sit back, I introduce the show, and I say, Malachi, so what are you thinking about? And then about 90 minutes later, and I'll say, thank you, and that's the show. And that was it, because Malachi starts spinning yarns and telling stories, and I loved it, because, Maureen, this was my dream, to do a show with Malachi. When I was growing up in Queens, my mother would have the radio on to WMCA, and I'd be going by, and she goes, that's an Irishman on there. He's the worst. He's against the Vietnam War. He's against this. Who would listen to him? And I'm there like, man, there must be something about this guy. My mother's listening to him, complaining about who would listen to him while she's listening to him. So then I became friends with Malachi when he was on ABC, and then he came over to WBAI, and now 8 years of just hearing Malachi just tell stories about New York City. It's been fantastic.
And those of you who may not know Malachi McCourt, I just interviewed him. I have a two-parter that I will be putting up on the audio platform, as well as the video platform is Patreon, Patreon for subscribers. But the audio is all going to be available, as will John's chat, on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. And Malachi is just a raconteur, a writer, a teller of tall tales. He owned a bar in New York, brother to Frank McCourt, the Pulitzer Prize winning writer. And Malachi just turned 90, and we released a book that he wrote in the 90s called A Monk Swimming, hysterical about his stories as an Irishman in New York. Unbelievable. You will laugh. It's a great book, and it's just coming out, so check that out. We got to support our Irish and Irish American community.
Yep.
We do, John. I want to hang out with you on your show again, though, one day. I want to just like hang with you guys.
I'm hoping that we get back into the studio at some stage, because the studio's still closed. So Malachi's doing it from the Upper West Side, and I'll be doing the show from Queens. But it's far more fun going in, sitting across, say, from you and talking and looking and having guests on and people that will come in and sing and things like that. So it takes a little bit away from it when you're doing it remote. All these shows now, and it's far better being in studio.
Oh, the real connection, the energy. That's why, even though this could just be an audio podcast, I like doing it at least visually, so that's one aspect of it, so I can see a beautiful face over there. Go see John's show, John McDonagh, Off the Meter at the New York Irish Center. Go to newyorkirishcenter.org. Get tickets. It's in Long Island City, one stop outside of Manhattan. 718-482-0909, 718-482-0909. And you guys follow me at MaureenLangan.com. You need a comedian for the holidays, or you want me to host or moderate a corporate event, just reach out to me. Good times. And you can support at Venmo or PayPal if you want to make a little happy chunk of change. You can do that. I'll say thank you. All right. Listen to me. Thanks for spending time with me today, John.
No, this is great. I love doing this, man.
Yeah. Much continued success to you. You're a real dude. You're really down to earth.
Oh my God. Are you going to be doing your show anytime in New York?
I did Daughter of a Garbage Man. I did do it before the pandemic in Manhattan. I think I'm going to keep that on the shelf for a while and not dust it off for a while. It's very emotional as well as funny. So sometimes going to those emotional places, like I need a little break from that. That's it. So there'll come a time. But I wish you much, much success. And you are a gem, and I'm happy to know you.
No, thank you for the opportunity here.
And I'm going to put you in the back room. You hold tight. And you guys, I am going to see you all again. And you know the routine. Okay, I got to do this. I have all these tech things that I put up here. I'm a very professional person. Until we meet again. Bye, Wig. Mwah.